Hi-yo. Prince, it's good to see you. Lots of hype. How's the music? Is this too loud? I think I had it too quiet last couple times. Peaking at about negative 35 dB. Solid. Nice. Nice. Yes, so we are going to continue our dive into React 3 fiber. I'm now consistently getting it. The order of that correct, which I am proud of. I am counting that as an accomplishment. So last time the past few streams on React 3 Fiber, we have been playing with the 3D text helper through React 3 Dry, which is like a helper library for React 3 Fiber. And at the last stream, we were working on understanding the settings on the camera and bounding boxes and kind of how we can position our objects in 3D space. So now that I think we've kind of got a good handle on that, I want to work a little bit today to see if we can finish up getting all that text centered, so we can kind of take a dynamic amount of text up to a reasonable limit and show that on the screen without it like being really long, getting cut off, or just not being legible. So let's switch over. Got stuff pulled up already. Really should commit some stuff. Been busy lately and I haven't cleaned any of this up, but it is what it is. We do have this GLTF asset in here that was pulled off of, I think it was originally created by the Smithsonian Museum, Triceratops. I'm not actually planning on committing that though. We'll swap that out in a bit. After we get this text layers stuff squared away, then we're gonna start doing some Blender. Speaking of Blender, here, can we do a? I think I got the shoutouts working, and I always forget to do this. Yep. Dragon Quest last time, but Prince was on Learn with Jason, which is it's LW. Was it lwj.dev? Is that it? Yeah. 4 was it? Nice. Episodes. Perfect. Prince is on top of it. They went over the basics and they made a burger. It was pretty fun. So if you want to kind of learn along with the Blender that I'll be doing, that's a good starter. I've done some modeling before. I haven't used Blender too much, so it's going to be a lot of like understanding the all the hotkeys and shortcuts, which really I think make it. Anytime you have to go up into the menu and click things, it kind of takes you, like, I feel like it takes you out of the creative process. So knowing all the shortcuts and the keyboard shortcuts allows me to kind of stay in the flow. And Prince definitely went into that a bunch. So good episode, and I appreciate the work that you're doing, Prince. So this text, and actually I need to got very orangey lights today. I forgot to switch it. And that will not do. That will not do. There we go. Yeah, now it's evening out. I forgot to turn on all my lights. Holy cow. That's why. There we go. One of those Fridays. Okay, so let's get this localhost started here. We can pull up what we have working on so far. Refresher, what's showing up in the browser is going to be Twitch chat commands guess that's all we have hooked up right now. Twitch chat commands will be triggering the 3D part of it. So if you do, I think it's !3D in any text, it should show up right now. Let's go ahead and zoom out just a tad so we can see the whole thing. There isn't going to be too much going on in the terminal either, so I'm gonna try to keep this window a little bit bigger because the terminal is less important for what we're working on. Look at that looks good. So we can see the full canvas here. And if we do a command, and right now this isn't, I think anybody can do this. Let's see if it is still operating. All right, where did we leave off last time? Whoop. That's funny. So we've got model text layer. So I think everything that we're doing is handled in text layer right now. And here's our message, and it's just going to be one big long string. And it's contained within this React component called text3D, which is from React 3 dry. I suspect, as far as I can tell, there's nothing that handles like multi-line text or large pieces of text. So I suspect that this was, as implemented, more intended for like static, unchanging type text, but we kind of want to make it dynamic. I think you can have multiple lines in it though. So that's probably going to be one of the first things that we explore. Line 12. So this is coming from, oh, there you go. So the command that we're using right now, we are pulling in all events from Twitch, both from IRC, which is this chat is IRC, which is an older protocol. And there's some events such as the channel point redemptions that need to connect to the Twitch API. And the library that we're using called comfy.js handles that for us. And we pass it in, dump it into like a stream of data. And here we're just parsing out the part or the events that we actually care about. So we're logging out the Twitch event and is setting up a text message, and that's dumping it into our text layer here. So we have, I thought we had this working last time. I wonder if we were running into some caching and we didn't notice that we broke it. So we had switched to use transition because it felt like we could better control how its pieces of text are entering and leaving based off of this. What we were doing before was using use Spring, and we were kind of like tricking it and swapping out the text. So using the same element and just trying to like swap out the text. This, if any of you have worked with three.js, which is a SVG and Canvas library, built more around, I guess, 2D graphing kind of stuff. Maybe that's probably the biggest use case for it. It has this this idea of entering and leaving, and so this also kind of matches up with how I think about it. probably influenced by how d3.js, since I've used that a fair amount. Okay, so they're saying that we cannot animate between animated value and animated array, as the to prop suggests. So we've got this. Oh, yep. Okay. So we were trying to get the bounding box. The bounding box, when you have a 3D element, it isn't necessarily square or symmetric or set up in a way that you can easily like figure out the positioning of it isn't extremely straightforward. The way you can position it in 3D space, you have to think about the three axes, X, Y, and Z, or depending on the program you're using, the directions of those can change. But it's basically like how high up in the air it is, how far away is it from you, and in multiple directions, like a depth thing and a width thing. And one of the ways you can attempt to calculate like the position of that and get the center point of the thing is to use a bounding box. So basically, like, you can think of it like a really poor version of a shrink wrap. I want to have a cube, and I want to fit this thing inside the cube, and that's basically your bounding box. And within that cube is your element, and you can then use that cube and find the center point of the cube, and that can kind of work like one of the ways you can figure out the center of an object, and that starts to fall down when you have a extremely asymmetric object. So like, what would be a good example of a if you've got a chair, if you put that chair inside of a box, the center point of it might not have actually like lie within the chair itself. So there's a couple ways you can kind of think about how to center and place objects. And so we were experimenting with the bounding box, trying to figure out how to position this thing in 3D space. Does that make sense? Okay. Yeah, so if we've got there is I wonder if this is going to kind of give us a little bit of a no, that's not going to help us. Wikipedia. Center of mass might work. That's actually good. So there's multiple ways you can keep track of an object and figure out. You have global 3D space, and then you need to place these objects in 3D space, and you can either use like the top left corner of it, but then that can potentially make some of your other calculations difficult. Like in the case of the text can be just a little piece, or it can get bigger. It can get bigger. If we're always using that top corner, it's going to be really hard to keep the text centered. If we can figure out like the actual center of the text, then we can just stick the center of the text into the center of our view. And when you get objects like this, the center of gravity is the point at which, if you could stick your finger there and hold it at that point, it's going to be perfectly balanced. That's the center of gravity. If you stuck that same thing in a box, the center of the bounding box is going to be different than the center of the gravity. Neither of them are necessarily wrong. You just have to keep it in mind when you're placing things, and depending on the use case. So for us, the center of the bounding box would probably be sufficient. We just want to get it mostly in the middle. Um, because for the most part, our text is going to be generally balanced. We're going to want to have about the same number of words per line, and ideally we can center it, do like a center justification. So all of that being said, when we were trying to get the bounding box, the problem is to, as far as we can tell, to get the bounding box, we need to draw the thing first. If we draw the thing first, then you can see it, which means it's not necessarily centered. So by the time it draws and starts transitioning in, by the time we get the actual size, we've already animated it in. So this was, it doesn't seem like there's a way to wait on that or anything. And maybe we could do something like a pull it in full size scale, zero opacity, transition it to really small, and then make it big again. But then you've got that delay, which doesn't feel great. The intention of this is like check commands and, you know, like rate alerts or channel point redemptions. That's kind of what I would want to use this for, because it's a fun way to make it interactive. But we don't want that delayed. So I don't know that this bounding box idea is gonna cut the mustard here. So what we're gonna do is, I don't know that this is the way to go, and especially since we now have an error there. So animate is not a function. Where is animate coming from? Animated. Oh, okay. Yeah, so that's kind of weird. Let's see if we can roll that back a little bit here. Just want to go to their doc site. And where is that coming from? Oh, that's part of React Spring. So we are using React Spring, which I think is made by the same folks as React 3 Fiber. And that's the recommended way to do the transitions. So the React 3 Fiber is going to be the thing that, working with React, does the WebGL stuff. And then to do actual like movement of objects within that space, so it'll be like transforming or affecting that object outside of any animations you can bake into it, the object itself. They recommend using React Spring. And we just switched to use transition. So, I mean, probably simplify it here and just say we want to, when we enter, so that there's potentially multiple elements. When something leaves, we want it to leave by scaling out to 0 and moving to position 0, 0. I don't know if we need that position anymore. When it first comes in, it's going to start from this value, and as it enters, it's going to transition to this value. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to just simplify this down to this. That should take care of the error message for us, and then we can potentially approach this from another direction. We're just gonna leave position 0, 0, 0 for everything. So we still have some. Is that caching? I thought I changed the Yeah, okay. We were getting some caching. I've noticed that Parcel caches things way deeper than I'm expecting, I think. So occasionally I'll end up having to do an empty cache and a hard reload to. I don't know if the empty cache part does anything. Maybe just hard reload would be fine. But there are definitely times where I like change something and I'm like, why isn't this updating? And it's because it's sitting around in cache. And like that's from, I think some of that's from last time potentially too. So it must be doing some file system cache that's just sticks around much longer than I expected to. So we are getting nothing. So if we do some 3D text, there we go. So now the problem that we want to deal with is if we have some really long text, that happens. So there's two things that I want to bounce through real quick here. I think if we have new lines in here, and I'm going to literally type a /n for a new line, and I'm going to see if that's going to work. No, it didn't. So you can see here that it actually got escaped. So Comfy.js is doing some escaping of like sanitizing the data that comes in, which is good. Within here, what we can do then, I believe it's going to respect I believe it's going to respect. Oh, I did it the wrong way, didn't I? No, I did it the right. I did it the correct way. I believe it's this text 3D is going to respect having new lines in the actual text itself. So if we go back to our really long set of text, there we go. So what we can do is we can say something like, we are doing a transition with this message. Oh, I forgot we used that. Is that newer? I don't remember. I don't remember when we did that. What we can do then is, so this function is returning a JSX element. We can do a little bit of computation up front here. And say we want formatted message to equal this. Yeah, I spelled formatted wrong too. Formatted is two T's. So this is just going to split up at every space. What we can do is we'll say maybe number of words dot length. So this is going to give us an array of words, presuming that a word is split up by space. If we say a max of 3 lines, so we want our text to split into 3 lines, we can use, okay, so that's an array. An array.length returns the number of elements in there. We have a space equal to, there's one less space than word. Does that hold true? So I think we want to do +1. We might need to check on the math. I'm not sure if that number of words calculation is correct here. But if we say we want 3 lines, we can then figure out how many words we want per line. So const words per line equal and we're gonna have to do math.floor should take working with numbers in JS mean that we get floats. Floats are one way to represent decimals. Obviously, we would prefer to keep a word, but we don't want to split up in the middle of words. So we need an exact number of words. If we use floor, it'll pull us down, basically chop off all of the decimal places. And that's actually going to give us 4 lines, I think. So I believe what we want to do is if we say this +1. Now, if we have that many words per line, we can say let's just make a words array up here. Message.split. So now we can say we want to we kind of want to do a join, but not strict join. Can you do does this have multiple args or anything? So it just takes a value, doesn't it? Yep. So we're gonna have to probably do a reduce here. So what we can do is we've got an array, and we can do array.reduce and convert that array of information into a single text value. So we'll do array.reduce. So we'll call it message and word and index. So there are 4 values within a reduce. You can that are passed to the reduce, and then we want to give it an initial value of an empty string. So our reduce is going to say, as we're looping through, index is going to be the integer or the number of basically the count of the word that we're on. So if we've got 20 words, this is going to be like effectively like 1 to 20. So does reduce index start at 0? I can never remember. So current index, I think, is 0, starts at 0. On first call is 0. Oh, otherwise 1. Okay. Zero if initial value is, oh, okay. We are specifying the initial value. So it's going to be 0. Our initial value is a string here. So we want to say if word in line maybe is the best way to say this. So our index What's the mod? I'm completely forgetting how to do mod. So there is JavaScript mod remainder. Oh, you can. I didn't realize you could do that. I don't know that I've ever used that. I guess I don't do mod in JavaScript very often. So what we're gonna have is we're gonna have an index, and we want to have a value. So we're gonna say 3 words per line, or we're gonna say the number of words per line. If we do this calculation and we get a remainder, we need to effectively keep looping. If we don't get any remainder, this should be the last one, last word for that line. So we can say, actually, I don't even think we need to deal with that. So if we say index mod number of words, so if that ends up being greater than 0, we wanted to continue joining. And word is going to be the value. So if this is greater than 0, it means that we are on basically in between. If there's 3 words per line, we're on like line, or the second word, or the third word would be the last one, and after the last one, we want to join it with a new line. And I think we want to trim that, which will get rid of the trailing new line. So assuming I didn't words per line, we want our remainder to be on the words per line, not the total number of words. Okay, so assuming I did that right, which is not likely. Message. Cannot read properties of undefined. Line 46. All right, let's take the trim off for right now. So this should be returning a string. Formatted message should be a string. Okay, so it's not flipping out if we've got an empty string. So if we do a single word, let's also log out the formatted message. Okay, undefined. Did I? I'm gonna do this. I think we could do the plus argument, but I think this will be a little bit clearer. I need a space in there anyways. I guess it's actually more like this. Still undefined. Go ahead and log everything out. Message word index. We'll log this out as well. And let's see where our zeros. So our words array, and then we get a length is the number of words per line. So words array should be empty. So formatted message should be giving us formatted message should be giving us a string if we have nothing. So message is empty, word index and mod. So it's going to do this, but message is empty, and we've got a new line and then a word. So this should then, oh, I always forget to return and the reduce. I'm used to map. Okay, so we've got formatted message is that, and now I think we can call the trim here. So if we do a single word, there we go. Our formatted message is still a single word with no new lines or anything. So if we do three words, seems to break up pretty good. Two words, I'm fine with that. And then if we do four, I'm kind of okay with that. So the only downside here, though, is that the justification, there's no, it's all left justified. So that would be this text is left justified. So we've got this edge right here is the edge that it's justifying against. It's moved over that way. If we do, they're not going to have a center justification on here, are they? Do we got an example of that? So this is right justified. What we want is something that's all the text is just, no matter the length, the center of it is centered. Ideally, something of that sort. But the helper that we are using, I don't think handles any of that for us either. So if we look at this helper library, text 3D, there's a text geometry, which falls back to three.js, which is what React 3 Fiber is built on top of. And we can specify a height and a size. I do want to come back to that because I think we could potentially use that to, rather than using a bounding box to determine the center of this, I'm wondering if we can use the size and the height. And since those are going to be a defined number, I think we could potentially use those to help position our text. this is all related to the look of the text, and then we've got font size and height. So it doesn't seem like there's anything that's going to help us out with the justification. But I don't know that that is the absolute end of the world here, as what we can do. So we've got a single text 3D. What we can do is, rather than returning a string here, we are going to switch this to an array. And so this is going to give us the remainder. If we do line index, so if we call, why is that? Cannot be, what? Okay, it was just slow. Rather than just appending all of this to a string, we can make an array, and we can have an array of strings. Oh, actually, we don't need to do a line index even. We can do an array of strings. So we can say if no, we do need that, because we need to know we're going to be building up an array of strings, and we need to know what line of the array we're on, or what entry into that array we're currently on. And that is going to be a 0. So if we have an index of 1, yeah, I think that should be fine. So this will give us the updated text. And every time we hit a word, we're going to be piping it into one of the lines. And it's either going to be into a new position, which will be here, or it's going to be tacking it onto an end of an existing like line of our string. So rather than message, we can say we're going to call this a message array now, just to make it more obvious what's happening here. Message array. So message array and line index. So we need to be mutating the string of text on a line if that line exists already. If the line doesn't exist, so we've basically hit a new line, then we need to add it. And that is going to be I guess we can just do a concate. No. Well, that's not a string concatenation. There's an array concatenation, right? Does that return a new array though? I think it might. So what we're going to do is say return that. All right, let's see how badly we broke our assumptions here. So we're getting an array with nothing in it, which is fine. And then what we can do is say for formatted message, we want to each element in the array is going to be a string. Right? I guess that's, yep. Except it's not that. Top map. And we'll call it a message chunk. So now we're going to get a text 3D element for each chunk of the message. And we're not affecting the position at all. So this all seems fine. We're not affecting the position at all. So I'm guessing we're going to get like, if we do forwards, we're going to get them on top of each other like that. And this is where we're coming back to the height and the size. I'm not sure what values those are, or whether, like, what's 5 pixels? That's definitely not obvious to me. So we're gonna have to figure that out. Can we give it a position? So we are transitioning this whole message based on text message. And we're setting the position here. Is it pulling properties methods? So the way three.js docs work is they inherit. So we have a text geometry node, which has these special properties, but it's a part of the extrude geometry, which also has its own properties. Some of these seem potentially similar, but it's also part of buffer geometry. And at some point, we're starting to get down to, here's the bounding box of that piece. So we have groups. Each one will be rendered in a separate WebGL draw call. This allows an array of materials to be used with geometry. Interesting. So it has, there is a dot center. Interesting. So like there's the compute bounding box. Now, if we are just affecting the scale, if we just center it from the get-go, we've got scale, okay, so there's a translate. This is typically done as a one-time operation and not during a loop. I think it's unrelated to this, but I think what we can do is, I'm presuming that X3D is inheriting all of this. So if we say translate, we want to, I need to write this down. Is Y vertical? Is Y up and down? I think we can do translate Y is index times 5. We'll give that a shot. So now if we do 3D, this is 4 words. Is it going to be, it's still on top of each other? It is not split up like we might expect. And we can't just go and look at the elements within the canvas, because what it's doing is it's basically taking the data and it's got a record of where everything is in the 3D space, and it's basically just drawing like the pixel representation of it. So it's not like SVG where we actually get DOM elements for all these pieces. Canvas is just like a picture of it. So the question is, how do we then debug this? I want to confirm that the data that we're pushing in is as expected here. So we can see a message, chunk, index. It did actually give us the like the ID autocomplete. That was the word I was looking for. It did give us autocomplete on translate Y. So I don't think there's inherently anything off with that. I'm going to set our default rather than me typing it every time. This is 4 words. So now we can just see it every time it loads. And this is going to potentially be based on this number here. So this is the other thing. There's nothing triggering it to be reset right now. So that's actually kind of nice for our debugging. Whereas here, when we do the transition, we're resetting the Twitch event. So the fallback is that chunk of text. So now if we bump up the, we forgot to look at the console log too. So this is 0 and 1, okay? So if we do 500, what is this gonna look like? Okay, yeah, I'm getting the key. Key equals index. It's fine for now. So like, what is that value? It does look like it's slightly changed. Distance number. So if we switch this to X, it doesn't seem to be actually doing anything. And this, so our position, we are resetting it to 0. when we do translate, I believe we're affecting the position. So it might have been coming in separate and then transitioning to the same spot. So if we take out the position, it's still in the same spot. This is working as expected though. So I think I mean, somebody could do a really super long word and it's going to break this, this code. But honestly, like, I think this is probably fine for now. So I think what we want to do, we'll go for a little bit longer. We want to figure out the sizing of this stuff. How can we affect its, like, can we translate it? Can we, based on the size of the text, determine how much left and right do we need to position this? And like, what does that translation need to be based off the size of the text? So if we are giving it a if we were giving it a size of this or a height of this, how do those map back to the like values that we put in translation? Size, float, size of text. So the default size is 100 and the default height, thickness to extrude text. Okay, so height isn't, so size is actually how tall it is when you're looking at it. So like your letter C will be this tall. This is an extrusion. So if we get on a 2D plane, our letter will look flat if we're looking from the side. It's an extrusion, so it's actually like taking that face and moving the face out. So it gives it depth, and our height is actually that value right there. So the thickness to extrude text. So when I saw height, I definitely thought it was potentially the same as the size. So our default is 100. We are specifying it as the default, I guess. So I think this is going to make it really big. Yes. If we pump this back to 500, whoop, not 5,000, 500, please. What are we working with now? If we do 50, it should be much smaller, right? Oh. So our scale is 0 and 1. I think that's per element, so I don't think it's actually doing anything with the viewport itself. That's 5? What? Size. You can use any material, text options, or options you'd pass to the text geometry constructor. So like that definitely, if it's falling back to three.js and is using the default size, that's huge. That's 5? So what is our translate on axis, traverse, morph? So there is a translate XYZ. We are getting an index. So I don't know how that value is relating to this value. We do see some depth there, and they do have a height. So let's go ahead and see what the height, changing that, it does. So whatever it's using here, um, yeah. So even though like that's large, I think we're gonna have to look at this text 3D. Let's look at the code, see if it says it's falling back too, but it doesn't seem to be using the same defaults. And I suspect there's some under there core helpers position. Here we go. These appear to be all of our components. So we care about text 3D. We are getting a size. Okay. Definitely not the actual defaults there. Text 3D is using, what are those suspend on? 3, standard library. Font data, text 3D props. So we got a font and mesh props. Pulls the actual text out of the children. Does some rough stuff with the font loader. These are the defaults that we're working with right now. So size is 1, height is 0.2. Let's go ahead and write that down. Default is 1. Default is 0.2. And honestly, that probably works for me. But these values, what is 1? So when we go to scale, are we scaling it to, is it like a percentage thing? That is a question. That is a question. So we've got some bevels, and it is using this mesh text 3D props, font, and mesh props. So text geometry falls back to extrude and buffer. It doesn't say anything about the, I guess there's a rotates. Is there a translate? Translate. So there must be some translation helper in here. Oh, they've got a lot of use ones. use progress. Interesting. Position, use effectful state. What does native have? Nothing. So we are getting, at least VS Code is telling us that there is a translate on here. So that could very well be wrong. And it could be that we need to do this extrude. So there's a translate. Core. So is there a mesh prop? I mean, we don't have got any. I do not know how it's determining the sizes. And it's just using any props that we pass in. They are expecting these props. Text 3D props and then a font loader. If we do text 3D props and mesh props, is mesh props only on this? From mesh props. Okay. So mesh props comes from that. What do our mesh props look like? 3 types. So object 3D node, 3 mesh. Lovely. So it's using the 3 mesh. Text geometry. I do not know the three.js docs well enough to like match this back either. So it's using 3.mesh. So if we just search for mesh here, so we got a mesh object. Material is mesh, geometry. A local transform matrix. Before render position. Okay, so position, rotation, scale. I don't see anything about actually translating it though. If we do position, seems like we get So it says that we've got something there. And what is that supposed to be? Vector 3. So if we say something like that as the starting position, I think this is going to be the same as if we would put the position in the from, but now we can have the position be relative to the index. So if it comes in, we've got two sets of text. There we go. Okay. Our default is 1. So if we do this by if we just do the index, what is that going to give us? We need a little bit more breathing room there. So if we do a half, so if our size is 1 and it's coming out 0.2, so it's 0.2 back. So from looking at our text from the perspective of looking at our text, it is 0.2 deep. We are going to give, if the text size is 1, we're going to give the gap between them in basically 1.5. Did I save that? Save. So then we need to adjust it left and right. And that's going to be if we think of these as like, can we not do points? Index is times by 1.5. That might be too much. Yeah, that might be fine. So with our font, so the problem is depending on the font, like we can give it a standard height and everything's going to fit within that standard height, but the width of the letter is not the same. So we can't presume that the height is going to be equal to the width to where a letter is square. Like our F here, definitely way more tall than it is wide. So centering it is going to be a little bit iffy. We could do it strictly based off the number of letters. And we could say something like, we're going to assume that most of them are going to be a little bit less than square. So if we say const number of letters equals message chunk dot split. If we split on an empty string, I think every character is going to be a value in the array. So this will give us the number of letters, and we want to position it where this is in the middle. So we want to say this divided by 2. And this is presuming that every letter is going to be square. The height is equal to the width. So if we say something like 3/4, what is that going to give us? And we do need to do negative because we want to move it to our, sorry about that. We want to move it left. There we go. So Is it too much? That is the question. So the number of letters. So if we have 20 letters, that's going to give us, say, 10. Um, we want to do this. Yeah, so we want to do in the middle of the letters. So that would be 2. So divide that by 2. That'll give us the center. It's basically the median. And then we want to convert that quantity of numbers to a size. And we want that size to be 0.75 because we're assuming that it's going to be widthwise. I mean, there's probably better ways to calculate this and more accurate. But I don't know that that's going to... I don't know that's going to gain us a whole ton. Okay, so this is setting the... It looks like the is sort of right in the middle. So our 4 words seems to be centered pretty well. The this is seems to also be... I guess centered pretty decent. And it's going to be completely dictated based on the letters, which is sort of the unfortunate situation here. So like if we do W's and I's, I think that's going to be kind of the extreme on what we might see as far as variation goes. This is 4 words. So this is the other issue. We are looping over and we are setting an index. We actually want that to be negative. So this number right here is setting the y, so it's moving it up. And I really need to write this down because I feel like I need to look this up every time. So it was actually flip-flopping them. It was doing the reverse. This isn't bad. The unfortunate here is that www. It's really long. That counts as 1 word. So you can kind of see how it starts to fall down. But honestly, I think I'm kind of okay with this. It'll work well enough. So 4, 4, and 1. We've got 9 words. If we want to split that up into 3, it should be 3, right? So what is our logic doing here? So what's happening is when we draw it, it's coming in at 0 scale. We are then positioning it relative to the index and presuming an actual width. So we're not calculating a bounding box or anything. Can we see a center? That would be kind of... I'm curious if these are gonna like clash or something. Let's take out the position. Let's see if this is gonna, because there was a center method. Yeah, okay. It's not actually doing anything. It would be nice to play around and see if we can get the center to work a little bit nicer. Let's fix this word thing. And then I think we'll call it then. We've taken our text, split it into multiple lines, centered it as best as is probably reasonable for this. Because these situations are gonna they'll happen, but I mean it's not the end of the world. So what is our number of words per line? So we want I guess it's probably this. I was wondering if that was gonna throw us off. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we still get this weird like if we happen to have a line where there's a whole bunch of words that are really really long, this is gonna happen. I am gonna bump up the delay a little bit here. We can let it sit on the screen for 3 minutes. We're gonna get rid of this. Clean up some of those logs. Still, it's in for quite a while though, or it transitions out real fast though. Delay. I think delay is how soon it comes in. And on rest. Let's get that tweaked, and then we can call it a day. I feel like this isn't quite intuitive in the fallbacks. Like it's using three.js under the hood, so we can fall back to it's extending three.js things. So there's functions and whatnot that we can use in three.js, which is nice. That it's more of a layer on top and not kind of like a re-implementation with if it was like a re-implementation and it only lets you put in specific args, as three.js changes, they would need to update as well, which would be unfortunate. The fact that it's putting a little bit of sugar on top using the React scheduler, and then lets you specify properties that are directly within three.js. It's real nice. But that connection, I feel like, is potential for trip up. So we want to do this use spring, React Spring, use transition. Okay. Pause. First delay. Delay in milliseconds before the animation starts. Also valid as a function for individual keys. Interesting. So all primitives inherit the following properties. There's also this use trail. Oh, yeah, that's something different. So what does this have as far as? We've got a from, enter, leave. I'm not sure what this config does either. I don't know if this is actually going to work, but if we put then config molasses, what are we going to get? Is it just going to like stick around a little bit longer? Config is not defined. Yep. Um, where's that config coming from? Show file enter config molasses. There's an initial. Okay. Expert like mounted after their leave animation is finished. And I think we could potentially do this too. Exit before enter. I think we do want that. And it's going to be dependent on like if we do two of them back to back here. Oh yeah, I didn't get rid of the config molasses. So if we do like two of them back to back here. Maybe we don't want that. Yeah, it's gonna do the blink thing. So we'll have to play around with that a little bit. I think for the first like POC kind of setup, that's not gonna matter as much. Use transition key. Yeah. Keys. Every transition has a unique key. Okay. Expires. Lets you control when items are unmounted. Okay. So we can do multi-stage transitions. I think we're gonna have to end up playing around with this a little bit. It feels like trail delay. It feels like we want to be able to set a delay, but it's in the middle. It's progress dampening, tension. I think there's something with the config. I think they've got a code sandbox around here. If I'm able to find it. So they've got a bunch of these like config molasses. Okay, that's nice, but where's that coming from? And part of me appreciates like the small snippet. It's easy to digest, but the like I can't just dump that in there. So the config is coming from somewhere, right? That's interesting. Oh, web only. Interpolation, additional notes, animating, dependency erase. Oh, that's potentially interesting. Um, where does the config come from? Config frequency. I could have sworn there was a code sandbox around here. That would be super helpful if I could find it right now. Basics. Are these no? So, oh, what's use chain? So it's actually, oh, that's interesting. Okay, so you can like chain multiple things together with that. That's kind of nifty. So everything has common props. Async chains, use Spring demos. Oh, I guess these got demos at the bottom. Yeah, that's what we can do. Let's go ahead and find one. So we don't. If we open up this, it's gonna take a minute to load. So what we're looking for is a way to delay it from doing the leave animation. And you can see that these are continually rotating. Shuffle. So what is triggering that is the case, or is the question here? Okay, so it's a use effect, and on interval, it's doing a set interval. Okay. And that's what's actually causing. Otherwise, it would like we could tune that down to 0, and it would just constantly be rotating. But we want these things to stick around for a little bit, and then leave when it's done. I guess that's kind of a notification. Let's try the notification hub, see what that looks like. That progress bar is nice too. This actually seems. I wish I would have noticed this before. This actually seems very similar to what we're trying to accomplish. So it's using a use transition from height life. So we are doing an async enter. It's setting the opacity, the height. And then on rest, it's adjusting the set items. So if we click multiple of them, it's doing that. That progress bar is filling up based off of the timeout. The timeout is, where are you? Oh, timeout. Duration. Okay, so there is a config key phase enter. So if the phase is enter or life, then the duration is the timeout. Otherwise, it is using a config. Okay, so that is, I think, exactly what we're looking to try to do. I assumed it had something to do with the config, but the config was just just didn't really have much information. Okay, so I guess. Oh, it's doing multiple steps. So we get an item index phase. This has multiple phases. So what it's doing is it's doing that phase and it's doing that phase. So those are the two phases. When it says the phase is enter and the key is life. So when it's transitioning this key, then it's going to set the timeout to be that. And I'm presuming that the actual, this bar that's filling up, I think that's just CSS, and they time the CSS to match. That would be my assumption. Still components. Button, container, message, content, life. So it's pulling life from styles. Background to image. Are we doing any transitions in here? Animated. So message is an animated div, as is life. So I think that's how it's controlling the animation. So it's effectively animating it using React Spring HTML stuff. We started at 0. We want to animate to 100%, and that's what it's doing. So rather than using CSS to do the transition, it's using React Spring. So it pulls it in, and based on basically the key in the enter phase, that's what's dictating. That is what's dictating it. Timeout is not defined. That makes sense. I do like 3000. 3 seconds feels like a good time to be up on the screen. We just shouldn't have timeout anymore. So if we do something here, so the enter phase is it's coming in. It takes 3 seconds to do that. Config is not defined. See, where does that config come from? Items, config. Okay, so it's actually saying it's from that. So tension, otherwise use. Okay, so it's just falling back to defaults. I wonder if we could just do that. I don't really care. like just use the defaults at that point. So I think it's going to come in real slowly. So I think we're going to end up having to split this up into multiple. It's kind of fun though. Cannot read properties of null. Yep. So I don't know if we just reset the properties, if it's going to fall back to the defaults. Does this use the defaults? Okay, so I think then basically what we end up doing is we say async this, and this is coming all the way back around to how we had originally kind of handled this. We are setting the scale. So we're going to do scale as 1. We don't need to do any of this. So we want to say if the face is enter and the key is show. I don't really care what that value is. I just want to let it sit in that. Cancel map is not defined. Cancel map. I don't need a cancel. Okay. So the transition for scale from 0 to 1 goes quick. The next phase didn't seem to actually change. We could probably do something like, so if faces enter, let's go ahead and just log this out real quick. Console.log. And we want to return this. So we are getting an item, an index, a phase, a key. Oof. All right, this is really noisy now. Let us get rid of some of this. We don't need these to help us out anymore. We do got a couple other things we can get rid of too here. All right, so we've got enter, enter, enter. We've got a leave. Here's the enters. So we get item, index, phase, key. There's nothing there to actually like differentiate it. So if we say weight, um, and we want to start our transition from weight 0. So now we're doing two phases. We're scaling it, and then we're doing the weight. And the weight is going to transition from 0 to 3000. So if the key is weight, I mean, I guess we can basically say the item right there. Hopefully this works. Please work. So we get an enter, and then the weight, another enter, and a weight. That's interesting that it's like coming in twice. So we've got the item phase and then the key. We don't have a value though. I mean, I guess I can just hard code it for right now. And then we'll play around with it. There we go. I would love to do a way to make that a little bit more dynamic, but hey, it's waiting. It's doing the thing. It's transitioning in and out. Now it did it. Now it's not waiting. What? Is it because I need to transition it back on leave? Whoop. I hit enter. Hey. That worked nice. Hey. All right. We could probably optimize it a little bit better, but it seems to be doing what we want, and I think we're starting to understand this. I want to look into this config more and understand exactly what's happening there, because I think that is going to be helpful, and will let us do some more interesting things than what we have been doing, because this is sort of the raw data, and then based on that, it looks like we can use the config to do special handling of that and how we want to transition in and out of pieces. So lovely. I think that's where we're gonna call it though. So thanks for stopping by, everybody. A little bit longer than I was expecting, but hey, we got things working. So we could there's potential for optimization here, but I think this is good enough for a POC, and I think this is shippable. We could probably put this up. Put it as the official overlay and kind of keep iterating on it from here. So love it. Love to see it. Thanks for stopping by, everybody. Have a good weekend. Keep experimenting. See you next time. Bye.